Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's bring this thing home.
All right, so here we go. Riley Leonard had 12 carries against Texas A&M last week. Over under 15 carries for him in the next 2 games combined.
I'd have to go under, and I think we kind of talked about this in and out a little bit ago. I think when you're playing teams like this, there's no real reason to run Riley Leonard. I think the reason why he ran against Texas A&M is because he needed to run against Texas A&M. There were times where schematically it just made sense. I mean, I just think Love and Price can handle the rushing these next few games, and I think that the more you can save up those runs for when you need them for Riley Leonard, the better. So I think you're going to see maybe even more of a conservative effort to get him to run the ball less.
I'm going to go under as well. It is curious that, like, if you look back at his 2022 stats at Duke, if you took any 2 games back to back, there's only one part of the schedule, and that is at the end of the season where he had back-to-back games that it didn't add up to at least 15. He had back-to-back games the last 2 of the regular season that added up to 14. But I think this is a completely different situation for him now. A much better offensive line, a much better running game, much better overall skill talent around him. And this game is really the next couple of games, but like this one starting with, is much more about the passing game and getting that going than it is about him running. Andrew says over because he's going to take off against Purdue. That head coach has a good defensive mind.
Even if so, I mean, that's probably 10 to 12 runs. Like, I really don't see.
Is he going to run less than 3 then this week? If that's
I do think so. I don't think there's going to be hardly any designed runs for him this week.
I think it's in his nature, though, that he's going to take off a few times.
That's true.
I don't know. I've seen nothing from Purdue, though, that convinces me that like, that head coach is a defensive mastermind, or, like any of that kind of stuff. Like, he might be, but their best player plays for Texas A&M now. So, on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm not going to buy into that right now. Now we'll do a obviously deeper dive on Purdue next week, and we can talk about that. But for now, I'm saying
Purdue.
Notre Dame's chances to go unbeaten this season went from 15.8% to 22.4% after the win over Texas A&M. They have the best chance of any team in the nation to go unbeaten. So scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that they will?
Oh, I'm going to go 9 out of 10. I don't think I think it's always hard no matter what, schedule or not. But I think what has me leaning more so towards the undefeated is just hearing the way Marcus Freeman is talking and approaching, the team with these games coming up. And I think if he continues that throughout the season and they keep everyone healthy, then I'm at around 8.5, 9 out of 10.
I'm at a 9 as well. I think that just the way the schedule shapes up and you hit it with the way Marcus Freeman is approaching these weeks, I don't think that he is going to let this team let up. So I think that they are going to stay on point and sharp.
I think he realizes the opportunity this season,
Yeah. Like, it's a massive opportunity to host a playoff, to not just be in the playoff, but host a playoff game, to have a chance to win a home playoff game and to move on in the college football playoff and all that kind of stuff. It's a really big chance for him in year 3. And again, it goes back to, why do you go out and get a guy like Riley Leonard from the transfer portal? Because I do think that they would have at least been in the running for a college football playoff spot, even if a guy like Steve Angeli is the quarterback this season. But I don't think that you're winning playoff games and beating these really good teams without a guy. Andrew, if I believed in jinxes, I would agree with what you're saying. You said, cut the undefeated talk. I swear we're jinxing Notre Dame after only 1 week. I don't believe in announcer jinxes of any kind. So, sorry. Rabbit Owl says we should pick one or two of these and follow up and see if we got them right. We talk about this from time to time, but we never do. We always talk about, we should write these down and see who gets them right, but we never do. So
I am going to bring the sticky notes. I'm convinced. I'm going to order a pad of sticky notes off of Amazon.
Okay, you do that. Notre Dame has plus 430 odds to get a shutout against Northern Illinois. That is actually down from 490 yesterday. What is your max wager on plus 430 to get a shutout against Northern Illinois?
My wagers are maybe a little bit higher than most, but I'd be comfortable with like a $25 bet on that.
I think I'm 10. 10 wins you what? $43 or something?
43.
Like that. I don't, because it's so hard to get a shutout. You don't believe that Northern Illinois is going to get a touchdown, but I
think they might get a field goal or two. I don't know.
Yeah.
I might have a shutout on the horizon.
All you got to do is hit a couple of plays, get into field goal range. Sloppy Joe says 1,000. John says $1.
Quite the difference.
Stymie says the farm. So we've got quite a range right there in the confidence level. I mean, it's great odds if you're really confident and you've got the cash to throw at it. Plus 430 would win you something if you throw some big money at it. But 10, I think, is my limit on that. Over under 13.5 points a game that the Notre Dame defense will allow this season.
Do you know what they did last season?
It was 14 something.
Oh, I'm taking the under.
I am as well.
Just because of I think the schedule is more favorable this season. I think they had some tougher opponents last season. I think they have a better offense, which I think tends to a better, well-rested defense as well. So I'm gonna go under.
I think they're going to be challenging to be the top scoring defense in the nation this year. I mean, just look at what they did last week. I'm going to be really curious to see what Texas A&M becomes offensively, because after one game, a lot of people want to completely write off Connor Wigman and A&M and the whole thing. It's like, oh, how good, it's the typical stuff. Well, how good was that A&M defense or, had that A&M offense though? I mean, look statistically at Connor Wigman. He's had some solid numbers, but I just didn't think that he was going to fare that well against Al Golden's defense, and he didn't. And if he's not going to, that's a 5-star guy out of high school. I see maybe one other quarterback on the entire schedule faring that well against Al Golden in Notre Dame this season. So I'm going to go under as well. I think they're going to be, like I said, I think they're going to challenge to be the top scoring defense in the nation this season. This is interesting. D-Rock Irish says, from On3 NIL, Notre Dame quarterback Riley Leonard was set to sign with Dick's Sporting Goods. Instead, he's bringing his entire offensive line to the appearance on Friday and giving the NIL dollars to his teammates.
That's pretty cool. Didn't know that.
Nice. Very nice. I mean, he's already got at least a couple pretty nice NIL deals set up. So, but that's, I mean, hey, it's the equivalent, I guess, of buying the offensive line Rolexes or cars or whatever after you win an MVP or the Super Bowl or whatever. The quarterback's got to take care of his offensive line. That's the way to go, man. That's the way to go. That's what a leader does, right? So on the Pat McAfee Show the other day, they got into a mini debate over whether Notre Dame or Iowa should be considered tight end U.
Gillis said he would like us to refer to them as tight end university a little bit more.
They're not, though.
Who is?
Iowa is, period.
Go ahead. He said, start listing them off. He goes, list them off.
Yeah, Anthony Fasano, Kyle Rudolph. I mean, Iowa's got
Eifert. And then I guess there's a guy now that they got, some Mitchell Evans.
Mitchell Evans.
Mitchell Evans who got hurt last year. He goes, best tight end in the country, dude. Last year gets hurt. Everybody forgets he exists.
I mean, are we talking about guys being good in college, or are we talking about guys who go on to be like all pros in the NFL? Because I think that's, they're developed at the college level.
So Shane was taking a direct shot at Iowa.
Sounds like it.
Okay. All right. Anyways, Notre Dame tight end university.
So that was McAfee and one of his co-host producer type guys. They're kind of going back and forth about that. So my question, Jess, should that distinction, if you're going to call it tight end U or offensive line U or quarterback U, whatever it happens to be, should that be decided by how good they are when they're in college or how good they are when they, once they get to the NFL?
This is a tough question because I think both, like, it's really comparable to me because I think Notre Dame had a better run there for a little bit between, like Rudolph, Carlson, Tyler Eifert, Troy Nicholas, and now, Michael Mayer of recent. But then, of recent, Iowa has Cole Kmet, and Iowa's had of more recent George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Sam Laporta, right? Like they each have had these kind of runs. I don't know. It's hard to say because, being a good tight end in the NFL can also depend on where you land, right? Like, so I think that also plays a part in it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know which one is more important because I think
if you're going to call them tight, like tight end, like I said, whatever position group it happens to be, it's about how well the school produces the talent to get to the NFL. Once they get to the NFL, that's a different thing. Like what they go on to be in the NFL. I think it should be about how the college, how the university, recruits, develops, and produces these guys and becomes the pipeline to get them to the NFL. I think that is the most important thing. Like the volume numbers that you're sending guys to the NFL at these positions. I think that's more important because, like, who knew George Kittle when he was in college? Did anybody know his name? Who knew
like
Gronk when he was in college?
I like this argument because it's called tight end U, so university, right? The university is responsible for cranking out, recruiting, developing, and getting these guys to the NFL. What they do at the NFL is, kind of on them and the team at that point. So I would have to agree. I think it's more about the college getting them drafted and getting them to the NFL. And if that's the case, I believe Notre Dame is tight end U over Iowa.
Yeah, I do too. Like, again, like Laporta and Kittle, two big stars, but okay, that's still just a couple of guys. You mentioned Hawkinson. I think that if you look at the last 20 years and look at the consistency that Notre Dame has sent these tight ends to the NFL, like Tyler Eifert didn't have injuries, he'd probably still be one of the best tight ends in pro football right now. But instead, unfortunately, his career is over because of the injuries.
I mean, there's still Alize Mack, Tommy Tremble, Durham Smythe, Ben Koyak,
all over the NFL.
I remember, I literally think I counted one year. Notre Dame had like at least six tight ends in the NFL at one point, and I don't think you could say the same about Iowa. I think Notre Dame had a stronger period than what Iowa did.
Yep. Stymie says, was it Fasano that spent a decade or so with the Dolphins? It was. He was drafted by the Cowboys, played for Parcells for a couple of years there, and then played for a long time with the Miami Dolphins after that. Andrew says, have the Raiders given up on Mayer already? Bizarre they picked Bowers. No, they're actually, from what I saw, they're basically just going to go to a lot of 12 personnel this year. They're going to use both of them. So
it was strategic to draft both of them.
Yeah. They have not given up on them by any stretch. So I think Bowers is probably still going to be the receiving, more the receiving tight end, but they're going to play Mayer out there as well. So Peter Schrager from the NFL Network has picked the last 3 Super Bowl matchups and winners. This morning he picked the Packers to face the Chiefs, with Green Bay going in as the wild card to win the NFC, and the Chiefs pulling off the historic three-peat by winning it all in New Orleans. You buying or selling that?
I mean, I got to buy it. If he's 2 for 2, what is there to
3 for 3?
Yeah, I mean, if he's
3,
if he's 3 for 3, I should probably place my bet right now because there's a good chance that you get good odds if you pick the exact Super Bowl matchup, right? So your sneezes have me sneezing now. No, but I mean, seriously, like if a guy is batting 3 for 3 on something like this, why would I disagree and not, basically say he's going to go 4 for 4? But as soon as I bet on it, then it's probably not going to happen anymore. So
it's pretty hard to pick against it. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people have really bought in on the Green Bay Packers, and all they've really shown us is one playoff win, one season with Jordan Love.
They still don't have a true wide receiver. I'm not completely bought in on their defense being elite. I think my Super Bowl prediction, since we're on the eve here of NFL starting, I like the Lions and the Chiefs. I think that's more of my matchup than the Chiefs and Packers.
That's what I would pick as well. Because like on the other side, the Chiefs, as much as they have dominated and the way the Chiefs got to the Super Bowl and then won it last year, I think it's very hard to pick against Mahomes until somebody knocks them off the pedestal.
I don't think the Chiefs' defense will be as good, but I think their offense will be better this year. I think that Xavier Worthy is going to grow into a Tyreek Hill type role offensively.
Father David likes the Lions and the Bengals. Not sure about Joe Burrow and the health. Like, he just hasn't been the same the last couple of years.
You were a big Joe Burrow guy. What happened? The injuries?
He hasn't been healthy. Yeah, I like Joe Burrow too. So Tom Brady makes his NFL broadcasting debut this weekend when the NFL starts. There's a lot of talk about whether or not Brady is going to be critical enough since he's played with and against a majority of the current players. So my question is that the number one thing that you need from an analyst for him to be critical of the players, or is there anything else that you think is more important?
I think that first of all, Tom Brady will be critical. I think he's done. I've seen a lot.
I think he'll be too critical.
Yeah, I think that he's been, on a lot of shows. I've seen him on a lot of clips where he's just talking about the current state of football, right, and how he kind of disagrees with certain things, and how a lot of quarterbacks are lazy and they lead their wide receivers into bad situations, and quarterbacks
they
are
dumbed down the NFL,
because they want these quarterbacks to play year one rather than learn the system and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think if anything, he'd be over critical. But to me, the number one thing as a listening to the game, just be authentic. Be authentic to the moment. Be authentic to yourself, to the situation. Like, I don't like anything that feels forced. I don't like the overdoing it, or to me, and I don't think this will happen with Brady, but I've told you before, my number one pet peeve is the homer type stuff, or like the bias type stuff. Like, I don't want to see a guy who's like, basically kind of clearly, rooting for maybe one side or the other. Just be as authentic and on that middle line as much as possible. If you give praise to one team, give praise to another team. I know you can't find, a lot of bright spots in maybe a New England and Chiefs matchup, right? Because one team's probably going to blow out the other, but just find ways to highlight both teams and be as authentic as possible.
Yeah, my thing, like, being critical of the players is not what I want. Like, I think the first job of the analyst is to, as concisely and as accurately as possible, boil down the play that just happened, like why the play did or didn't work, as concisely and accurately as possible. That's the biggest thing. And now in that, there's probably going to be some, critique that comes with it. But tell me why the play did or didn't work. I mean, I think play in and play out, that's the number one thing that you're looking for, why it did or didn't work. And, just do it, like I said, as concisely as you can. That's the big thing. Andrew says Troy Aikman strikes a good balance. I agree with that, though he has been more critical in recent years. He's become angry, Troy, sometimes. So I think he just gets disgusted, kind of what you were talking about. He just gets disgusted with bad quarterback play. And I think that you're probably going to see some of that from Tom Brady as well. As an elite level as he played at, I think that you're going to see, Tom Brady at times maybe just want to throw his hands up in the air and go, what the heck is going on here? But I think he's going to be really good with his ability to diagnose and tell you, why things are or are not working well. Well, that's going to do it for tonight Jess, we're going to wrap it up with that this evening. We've got Countdown to Kickoff, IB Countdown to Kickoff coming your way tomorrow night. The video and the podcast will drop tomorrow evening, hopefully quicker than it did last week, if we can keep Vince in check and, not make us go back and have to do extra work on the show after the fact. So tomorrow night, look for it. Appreciate you being here. Great show. Great questions, rather, on the We In, We Out from the new Champions Lounge. Remember, that's where you can submit them each and every week, and we bring them right here. Thank you very much for the reminder, Joe and Rapid Nile Chihuahua. Hit that like button before you leave. We appreciate it as always. We will talk to you Memorex tomorrow, IB Countdown to Kickoff, and we'll, of course, have the post-game show this weekend, and IB Nation Sports Talk back live in full Monday. We will talk to you then. Have a great weekend. IB Nation Sports Talk.
Boom.